Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives about recent important press releases at their companies. With us today, I'm happy to have again Darren Blaney, the CEO and Director of American Creek Resources. The company trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol AMK. For those of you who are new to the story, listen to this. The company has an impressive portfolio of high potential gold and silver projects in British Columbia, specifically in British Columbia's prolific Golden Triangle, one of the richest areas of mineralization in the world. Now, more than just lip service, the Treaty Creek claim of the company lies within the same broad system that generated several deposits on both Seabridge Gold's KSM and the Pretivm Brucejack properties that immediately lie southwest of the Treaty Creek. The Golden Triangle itself has produced about 130 million ounces of gold, 800 million ounces of silver, and 20 billion pounds of copper that have been delineated, representing one of the greatest concentrations of metal in the planet. Now, more importantly, the company has a JV with Tutor Gold on two of their projects. This is the company that brought Osisko Mining to market and eventually sold the company in the billions. Tutor Gold announced on January 24th that they were bringing on Jeff Kaiba. They're retaining him. He's a geologist. Why is that important? Darren's going to tell us. Darren, welcome to the show.
Hey, George. Appreciate it. It's great to be with you again. Yeah, we've got some great developments again. The most exciting being, as you've mentioned, Jeff Kaiba joining the Tutor Gold team. Now, what I'd like to do, if we could, is just go back a little bit for those that aren't aware of it and just give some history on how we came to be in two joint ventures with Tutor Gold. Tutor Gold is really the brainchild of Walter Storm. Walter Storm, for those that don't know, was instrumental in putting the Osisko gold mine into production in eastern Canada. Really, he was the one that funded it from the start of that project, really grassroots project all the way through, ending with the culmination of a sale at the end of 2014, $3.9 billion they sold that project for. It's one of Canada's best mines, still producing now, of course, called the Canadian Malartic. So that's Walter's latest venture, and of course we know how that went, very successful. He doesn't sit around. He's in his 80s. He was looking for another project, specifically another gold project. He approached us on our Treaty Creek property that we have up in northwestern BC. Right. And as a result, we were able to put together a joint venture on that deal, with American Creek having a 20% fully carried interest, which means we don't have to raise capital, we don't have to dilute the stock until there's a production notice given. So very promising deal for us, very good for him. He was able to get his foot in the door in a very prospective region of Canada on another project that he thinks is another mine and wants to put into production. We also did another joint venture deal with Walter on our Electrum project. We have a 60-40 joint venture split on our Electrum. And so that's moving forward as well with Tutor at the helm there. So that's just some background for those that aren't aware of it.
And if I can interject there, I'm just going to add some anecdotal, my own personal opinion. But when you've got a winner who's already financed and taken a project into production and sold it for $3.9 billion.
Yeah, with a B.
With a B, I'm going to make the assumption that that kind of winner doesn't mess around with little projects and little things. Right. Time is too valuable. He wants to find another elephant, and I think that's relevant to mention here. It's my own opinion. I know it's not coming from you, but business common sense tells me he's done these JVs with you with two of your promising projects in the Golden Triangle because he thinks he's got something big. We don't know if it's $4 billion big, but it's got to. We have to assume that he thinks the potential is big. So I just want to kind of interject with that because that's what I found most impressive.
Yeah, exactly. He's not a guy to spin his wheels and waste time. He's a go-getter. And yeah, he saw the potential and the merit of it, and we were able to put it together. So we're thrilled with that. As you mentioned, the most recent development that we're really pumped about is having Jeff Kaiba join the Tutor Gold team. So Jeff Kaiba, again, for those that aren't familiar with the name, many working in BC will be familiar with the name. But for those that aren't,
that's most of us in all honesty, so it's good to know.
Yeah, you bet. So anyway, he's worked with the BC Geological Survey and the BC Ministry of Mines as a regional geologist up in the area that encompasses the Golden Triangle, really the expert or the prominent geologist working on that area. Again, Walter sees what he wants and goes and gets it. He approached Jeff about joining the Tutor team and heading up the exploration in the Golden Triangle, which of course includes our two joint venture projects with Tutor, the Electrum and Treaty Creek. Jeff, I guess his most prominent or significant thing that he's contributed to that area is a recent paper that he published talking about the potential of the area from Stewart all the way up to Treaty Creek. Actually mentions Treaty Creek in the paper, in the title of the paper. He labels it as one of the most prospective areas in the province and where BC's next big mine is likely to be found. He even goes further and he delineated what's referred to now kind of famously in BC as the red line. So the red line is an area that he actually traces out on a map that goes right beside our Electrum project and right through the heart of Treaty Creek, and coincidentally in the very same area where we have our discovery hole in 2009 and where the work occurred this summer. So as far as the guy to get to develop that project and move it forward, you're not going to get better than Kaiba. You know, money does amazing things, I guess, and you know, the merit of the project attracted Kaiba, and now he's part of the Tutor team, so we're thrilled with that.
And let's face it, at the end of the day, a lot of great civil servants, whether they're with crown attorneys or in this case regional geologists, yes, sooner or later they want to move into the private space. Right. They're going to make that move when the opportunity is a really great one. So now I'm going to anecdotally add, first, you had some great discoveries on these projects back in 2009, but the world, not the whole world knew about that because you're a small cap junior. Sure. In comes Tutor Gold, and they give that credibility because we already talked about that a minute ago, so we're not going to add that. Right. And now we've got Jeff Kaiba coming on, the most regional geologist, recognized for his expertise, and he's leaving the government, public sector, into the private world specifically to work on these two projects in the Golden Triangle, amongst others. So how good does that make you feel, given where you were a year ago and where small cap, junior resource companies were a year ago, when you're just kind of holding on to these great projects without and not knowing the future, to having an unbelievable partner and an unbelievable recognized geologist leading these projects, hopefully into great advancement.
Yeah, like I said, George, we're thrilled. Incidentally, we over the last couple of years have referenced Kaiba's work several times, in press releases and so forth, because of that prominent paper that he put out. I never expected that he would actually be joining the team. Here he is. He's going to be working on our project. In fact, just this last week, he was in the booth out at Roundup in Vancouver. The Electrum project was featured there. We were invited to come to the show. And he was there in the booth with us, talking to people, talking to investors. It was kind of surreal. It was great. We've got Kaiba there talking our project. So yeah, we're thrilled, and that does add a ton of credibility to what we're doing up there, and our projects up there adds a ton of credibility to what Walter's putting together and the programs that they're anticipating that will be carried forth on the project this summer and beyond. So now we've got an expert at the helm. He'll be instrumental in putting that together and is very involved right now. So thrilled, we're thrilled.
Let's go over since we are talking about Treaty Creek and Electrum, let's remind the people at home, especially those who are watching for the first time, because American Creek Resources is getting on the map. We've been banging the table now for a few months. In fact, I'll tell you off the record, had someone on LinkedIn who actually contacted me and said, hey, tell me more about American Creek because I'm reading these updates. So
that's good. That's good.
The word's getting out there, that's for sure. So
it's nice to see some life in the market because as we've talked about before, the last 6 or 7 years in the junior resource sector, specifically mineral exploration, have been the best word to describe it is brutal. I mean, just brutal. In fact, interestingly enough, at the panel discussion they had out at the show in Vancouver that just wrapped up, it's one of the topics that came up. The last 7 years have been the worst in history for the junior resource sector. Just very, very tough times. But also that we're breaking out of that. Those that have been following the gold market and some of the events happening to the south of us, the fundamentals for gold and really silver as well are changing drastically. So this is what we waited for, and now we've got the team with Kaiba there to put it all together.
Well, almost a year ago today, before moving these projects, I actually put out the TSX Ventures at 570, and I put out a prediction on my blog. Everyone saw it, that we would hit 700 within 12 months. I was wrong because we actually had 800. It blew through it. And I'm about to...
Maybe you should be an analyst, George. Yeah.
Well, I'm about to make my next prediction, actually. And Darren, this applies to companies like yours. There's a reason for the logic. I think the next 5 to 7 years is going to be a boom time for TSX Venture small cap resource companies for one simple reason. We've gotten rid of all the paper, pump and dump kind of all those listings that we had for too long.
That's true. That's
George
true.
and Bob get together because we saw a shiny rock in Greece. We buy 5-cent paper, promote it, and then we don't know what to do. It worked as a business, I guess. A lot of people made money. It diluted the market. It killed it. There was no good quality. So those are all gone. My point is.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Financing. No one's paying attention. So what survived? What survived are companies like American Creek. Only companies that have great projects, quality management. They know what they're doing in great areas. So when we decrease supply and we increase quality, that to me, you can just put those two factors together. Unless we have a collapse in precious metals prices and base metals price the next 5 years, which I don't foresee, I'm looking for the TSX Venture to at least double by in the next 3 to 4 years minimum. But anyways, let's go. There's a reason I'm saying that because American Creek is now moving into this cycle right along with it. So let's talk about Treaty Creek first.
Sure. So Treaty Creek, maybe I'll just go through a bit of background there on what occurred there this summer. So Tutor went in there. This was their initiating year, I guess, if you will, on the project, their first year. We didn't put the deal together till late spring, so they didn't have a lot of time to prepare. But they got it together. They put together a camp, refurbished the old camp that was there, even got some holes in the ground. And just to highlight that, what they did was they started out in a logical place, which is where our 2009 discovery hole was. We had an intersection there very similar to what Seabridge Gold has just to the south of us. I should mention our proximity to both Seabridge and Pretivm. So we're immediately north of the Seabridge KSM project, M being the Mitchell, and the Mitchell is right across our boundary. I should mention as well is their latest drilling that they did this summer. They drilled what's called the Iron Cap zone, which is on our immediate boundary. We're just to the north of that. They drilled underneath the Iron Cap in a zone called the Deep Iron Cap and hit the best grades that they've hit thus far on the KSM project. So again, leads very well into what we're doing, right on the boundary. And we can talk a little bit later here about what we're expecting from that as far as continuation onto our project. But Pretivm Resources as well is in the same area. Their Snowfield deposit is just south of us. And then, of course, the Brucejack Valley of the Kings, which is getting a lot of exposure. They're getting phenomenal grades of gold. And that project is slated to go into production in the next 12 months. So we're in big elephant country with neighbors that are huge to the south of us in the same geological trend. Like I've mentioned before, it kind of looks like when you look from the air flying over, it looks like somebody took a big orange paintbrush, and swathed it across both the Pretivm and Seabridge projects right north onto Treaty Creek and in this area where we're drilling. So just to go back again to where I left off there, we had our discovery hole in 2009 in Treaty Creek with grades very similar to Seabridge to the south. Tutor followed up on that this summer. We're able to expand that zone as well. They drilled another hole about 1 kilometer away from that 2009 discovery hole, which was hole 3 for 2016, and hit very similar grades again to what Seabridge has to the south. So now we've really got blue sky going. We've clearly got a huge system going on there, which is what we thought all along. Again, appears to be, we now have evidence that it's a continuation from our neighbors to the south heading onto our property. And what's going to be happening this summer on Treaty Creek is a follow-up on that zone, of course. We want to get down deeper, so Seabridge is drilling deeper than we've drilled previously on Treaty Creek. That's where they're hitting their best stuff. So the plan is to go deeper and expand that zone. As well, George, speaking of the Iron Cap, Tutor was able to put together an extensive geophysics survey that was ran this summer. It's the same technology, same company that was used on our neighbors to the south. Both Seabridge and Pretivm used that technology to discover their latest deposits. So Tutor was able to put that together. We're expecting the results of that report back in the next few weeks here. We don't have it back yet. But we expect what it's going to show is that the mineralization carries forward from the Eureka zone, which is where the 2009 discovery hole was and where the drilling that occurred this summer was located as well. We expect the mineralization is going to carry forward right down to the Iron Cap, which I mentioned is on the boundary between us and Seabridge Gold. Again, we'll have to get the report back for that to be confirmed, but that's what it looks like thus far. So we're extremely excited about that as well, because that represents a very large distance. That's about another 4 to 5 kilometers of mineralization. So expecting good things there as well.
So when people at home are considering, what they're going to do in 2017, what American Creek has to offer is, okay, you had these great projects on your own. You've got Tutor. You've got our new geologist now who's leading it, and you're in country of elephants. So you've got got the trifecta. I'm going to be careful to tell everyone at home. It doesn't guarantee anything, no way, in any way, shape, or form. But it doesn't get better than this in terms of how you're set up as a company to potentially deliver. So that's unbelievable when you sit there and explain Treaty Creek.
It looks like this is going to be our year. Like we've talked about, the last several years have been pretty rough. The market really hasn't cared at all about mineral exploration, especially the juniors, but now's our time. You see the fundamentals for gold building. You see some of these recent developments that have affected us in a big way. We expect 17 is going to be a great year. We're looking forward to it.
And you've also got the Electrum project. Let's talk about that.
We do.
Also under joint venture with Tutor Gold.
It is. So as I mentioned before, we have a 60-40 joint venture there. Tutor is the operator of that project as well. Kaiba is going to be intimately involved in designing that program going forward. Tutor did some initial work there this past summer, delineating one of the areas where we had very high-grade silver with gold. I mean, we've got phenomenal grades of silver and gold off that property in the past, both on surface and in core. And we're talking silver in the tens of thousands of grams per ton. Gold, up in that 400, 600 grams per ton. So one of the things that Tutor did was they looked at one of the high-grade silver areas. They did some drilling for, it's difficult to have the mineralization show up in the drilling, and I won't get into all the technical terms, but the liberation and so forth in the assay, there's some difficulties there. And so what they did was followed up on the work that we did in the previous year to use the drilling to delineate the major zones and then go in there and do actual sampling, taking out what are referred to as mini bulk samples. So they did one of those on an area this summer, ended up getting over 500 grams per ton silver with a very, very good kicker of gold, just under 3 grams per ton. That was a 4-ton mini bulk sample. So that leads very well into work this summer. This isn't even an area where the high-grade gold or Electrum is. This is just a silver area. So that bodes very well. Multiple other areas where they're going to do really the very same thing to try and get an idea of what's there on a broader scale. Incidentally, we were featured at Roundup in Vancouver at what's called the Core Shack. So we were invited to come there because of the Electrum project, what's been happening there. They wanted us to highlight some of the core and rock that's been there, and Kaiba was there in the booth. Those shareholders that had a chance to visit the booth would have had a chance to talk to him, as well as personnel from Tutor and American Creek. I should also mention that there was a panel discussion that just occurred out at the show on the Golden Triangle, and we were mentioned in that a couple different times as the Electrum project being of merit and one of the projects for investors to keep their eyes on. So just as a side note, George.
Yeah, I'm telling everybody, when you got this trifecta, you've got to put American Creek Resources on your watch list. It's got to be high up there. Do your own due diligence, speak to your financial advisors, do all that, but make sure at least you do it on American Creek Resources, because you guys have the trifecta that we talk about. And what's even better, we're going to save this for our next interview, is now that you've got Electrum and Treaty Creek kind of handed over to Tutor Gold and letting them do their thing along with Jeff Kaiba, you're now in the process. You've got other great projects that you're going to start working on as American Creek on your own, while concurrently while Tutor Gold and Walter Storm and Jeff Kaiba are working on. So we're going to talk about those in our next interview next week, but it's just great for investors to know that even if all you had was Treaty Creek Electrum, you have enough meat on the bone, but there's even more to talk about.
Yeah, if I could just add to that comment for just a minute. So yeah, one of the things that doing the joint venture deals with Tutor has done is it's allowed us to free up resources, time and energy and so forth to focus on some of the other projects in the portfolio. We don't have time to go into all those, but we should maybe talk about one here. It's another one that's in the Golden Triangle. We picked it up this last summer. We put together several deals. We did a Bear River deal and a Silver Shot and a Dunwell Mine package, and put together what we now refer to as the Dunwell Mine property package. It's a past historic producing mine just outside of Stewart. It's about 8 kilometers out of Stewart, road accessible. Past production there up until the 1930s. Some very good, again, grades of high-grade gold and silver. So we're thrilled about that project as well. That's one of the ones we're going to focus on this summer.
I got to give you guys, I got to give your team credit, Darren, and this is why, you know, what's going to happen to TSX Venture is going to happen. The quality guys survived because they were smart enough to survive Darwin at the end of the day. You know, essentially that's what happened to the industry. The weak died. And the fact that you guys are able to continue adding your holdings in the Golden Triangle there and adding the Dunwell mine property package, past producer, all of that.
Right.
A real big hats off to you and your team. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, so you've been watching Darren Blaney. He's CEO and Director of American Creek Resources. The company trades on the TSX Venture Exchange on the stock symbol AMK. Look him up on the web, get to the website, familiarize yourself, and then get to Agoracom, punch in the company's name or symbol so you can watch all the interviews we've done with Darren. I'm going to tell you something. Everything Darren has said is going to happen has happened, and we like when people have a track record of speaking truth, and Darren's been doing that. So thanks to everyone at home for joining us, and Darren, thank you for taking the time again to speak with us.
Thanks. Appreciate it, George. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.